Reborn back in 1976, my biological mother tied me up with a rope and dragged me off to work on the reservoir, so she could trade me for my eldest brother's bride price. I splashed a bucket of swill right in her face and shot back. Split the family. The whole village cursed me for being unfilial. But what they didn't know was that I had an immortal cultivation technique in my head and a tortoise shell in my palm that could tell fortunes. Later, I made my first pot of gold selling mountain goods, and when my biased mother knelt and begged me to come back, I only said 4 words: too late. Time to repay the debt. Reborn in 1976, after tearing into my biased parents, I plunged straight into the deep mountains. My name is Jiang Xiaochuan, and when I opened my eyes, above me was a roof beam plastered with old newspapers, and in my ears was my biological mother's shrill yelling. The village is building a reservoir, so you're going. Bring your own rations and work for 3 years. Your big brother is weak. If you, as his little brother, won't take his place, then who will? In my previous life, this was exactly how I was shoved into a living hell. I slaved away at the reservoir for 3 years and ruined my health from exhaustion. Then after I came back, I was sent to the quarry, and in the end I died of overwork in a mine tunnel. My family took my compensation money and used it to get my eldest brother a wife. The humiliation and hatred burned so fiercely that all my organs ached. Luckily, heaven took pity on me and gave me another life, along with a stroke of fortune, the art of immortal cultivation through creation, and a tortoise shell that could divine good and bad fortune. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. In this life, no one is going to bleed me dry again. I'm not going. The room instantly fell silent. Wang Xiuqin's voice shot up an octave. What did you say? You think this is your choice? Most of the family's work points, and the hardest, dirtiest jobs, were done by me. When there's something good, it's never my turn. But when it's some rotten job that sends someone to their death, suddenly you remember me. Because I'm your mother. I gave birth to you and raised you. So you have to go. I looked at her spitting furiously, and all the resentment piled up from my past life surged up. Ever since I was little, all the good food and good clothes were saved for Big Brother. If he coughed even a little, you made him egg water. When I had a burning fever, I still had to go to work, and when I came back, I didn't even get a sip of hot water. Mom, am I your son, or just livestock you've raised? Wang Xiuqin's face flushed red, like I'd hit a raw nerve. How dare you, Jiang Xiaochuan? If you won't go, then don't call me your mother. I straightened up, my gaze cold as ice. Fine. We'll split the family and sever ties. From now on, whether I, Jiang Xiaochuan, live or die, it has nothing to do with your Jiang family anymore. She shrieked and lunged at me to grab me, her nails digging into my flesh. Mingtao, get the rope and tie him up. Escort him to the reservoir tomorrow. Jiang Mingtao charged out with a hemp rope, his face full of malice. The art of immortal cultivation through creation began circulating through my body, and a surge of heat rushed through all my limbs and bones. I jerked my arm, and Wang Xiuqin was flung off balance and fell to the ground. Jiang Mingtao pounced on me, but I sidestepped, grabbed his wrist, and twisted hard. A pig-slaughtering scream rang out. I kicked him in the stomach, and he curled up on the ground like a cooked shrimp. A worthless piece of trash like he wants to tie me up? I planted my foot on his back and looked down at him. I used to be stupid enough to let you use me like an animal. Starting today, I'm done serving you. We've got a long life ahead of us, so we'll settle things slowly. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted the bucket of pig swill in the corner of the wall. With a flick of my toe splash, the sour slop and rotten vegetable leaves poured all over Wang Xiuqin's head and face. She sat there stunned in the stinking water, unable to react for a long while. I turned and left. Behind me came Wang Xiuqin's horse, hysterical shrieking. You little beast, how dare you leave? Without this family, you're destined to be nothing but a beggar. My steps paused, and I looked back. Around both their brows hung a layer of black chi that ordinary people couldn't see. In my sea of consciousness, the tortoise shell gave a slight tremble, and I counted on my fingers to calculate TSK. Stagnant liver fire, depleted kidney water, damaged virtue, and retribution is coming. A kind reminder. I leaned against the doorframe, drawing out my tone long and slow. The two of you have darkness on your foreheads and malignant energy wrapped around your brow centers. Instead of wasting time cursing, you'd better find a doctor while you still can. Especially you, there's probably something growing on your liver. And you strong on the outside but weak within. Be careful, or you may not be able to get it up later. Kind words can't persuade a damned ghost. I've said all I need to say, whether you listen is up to you. Amid their furious, exasperated cursing, I strode out of this stifling courtyard that had trapped me for 2 lifetimes. The morning wind filled my lungs, cool and refreshing. I was free. Damn, it felt good. I started planning my next move. I didn't have a single cent on me, so I had to make some money. Live off the mountain, if you live by the mountain, hunting was the fastest way to make money. I slipped into a secluded hollow in the back mountain, sat down cross-legged, and focused on circulating the creation immortal cultivation art. Threads of spiritual energy seeped into my limbs and bones, and the hidden injuries left from working in my past life began to fade, while my strength grew like crazy. After who knew how long, it felt as if a barrier inside my body had been broken through body tempering stage, level 2. I casually picked up a pebble and flicked it at a tree trunk more than 10 meters away with a smack. It embedded itself halfway in. This strength and accuracy were far beyond ordinary people. I got up and went to borrow an old hunting rifle from Hu Chunxing, the production team leader. The heavy metallic feel steadied my heart. With this thing in hand, the mountain was my pantry. I plunged straight into the vast, sprawling forest. The skills of body tempering level 2 made the rugged mountain paths feel like flat ground. When I reached a secluded slope halfway up the mountain, I stopped, and that ancient tortoise shell appeared in my palm. 3 divinations a day, and I had 2 left. First, I'd calculate whether this trip would be fortunate or ill-fated. I sat down right on the ground, calmed my mind, and shook the tortoise shell cupped in my palms. Spirits of heaven, spirits of earth, mighty tortoise shell immortal, reveal your power today. I enter the mountains to ask about my prospects. I loosened my hand, and the tortoise shell dropped to the ground and spun around a few times. The hexagram revealed itself in my heart. Great fortune, a sign of abundance and encounter. Abundance, bountiful gains, a storehouse full of prey. Encounter, the red lawn star stirs, and the thread of romance is drawn tight. The corner of my mouth twitched. In these barren mountains, even female rabbits were hard to find, so where was any romance supposed to come from? Great tortoise shell immortal, please don't go and match me with some sow that's become a spirit. I grabbed the hunting rifle and headed deeper into the forest. As I passed a thicket, a plump gray rabbit darted out. I bent down, picked up a pebble, and with a flick of my wrist, the rabbit dropped on the spot. Before I had gone far, I startled up another brightly colored pheasant. I hurled a pebble, and after flapping twice, it went still. Weighing the game in my hands, I felt pretty good. With this skill, I wouldn't starve. Just as I was wondering whether to keep going deeper or clean the game first, a faint cry for help drifted over on the mountain wind. Help someone. The voice was terrified and desperate. It was a woman. My brows furrowed, and I tightened my grip on the rifle as I moved toward the sound. Pushing aside the dense branches in front of me, a figure came crashing over in a panic. A warm, soft body slammed solidly into his arms, carrying a faint scent of soapberry that was utterly out of place in this mountain forest. Jiang Xiaochuan had a steady stance and wasn't knocked back, but the figure was jolted and staggered backward instead. He instinctively reached out to steady her. What met his hand was a slender but somewhat frail arm. Looking up, Jiang Xiaochuan's gaze paused slightly. The one who had crashed into his arms was a young woman, looking to be 18 or 19. She was wearing a blue cloth educated youth outfit that had been washed until it had faded pale, with quite a bit of mud and grass clinging to the legs of her pants, and her hair somewhat disheveled as well, a few loose strands stuck by sweat to the side of her smooth forehead. Yet even in such a bedraggled state, it was hard to hide her exceptionally striking beauty. Her skin had the kind of fair complexion only city people seem to have, now flushed red from panic and running. Her features were as delicate as a painting, with a straight, pert nose, and her lips slightly parted from rapid breathing. Most striking were her eyes, clear and bright, yet now filled with terror, like a startled fawn. Even though Jiang Xiaochuan had seen quite a few women in his previous life, he had to admit, this girl was truly eye-catching. She looked like a fairy from a painting, utterly out of place in this poor mountain village. The girl was still shaken, and when she saw that the person in front of her was a living, breathing human, and a young man holding a gun at that, it was like clutching at a life-saving straw. She grabbed Jiang Xiaochuan's arm, her fingers icy cold, her voice trembling and thick with tears. Run, hurry. Before she could finish speaking, boom, boom, boom. The bushes were smashed apart by a tremendous force. A huge dark beast charged out, glaring with tiny crimson eyes and snorting heavily. It was a wild boar, and a full-grown male boar at that. It was built like a small calf, its bristles thick and stiff as needles. 2 curved, razor-sharp tusks jutted from its mouth, gleaming coldly, streaked with mud and grass roots, enough to send a chill from the bottom of one's heart. Jiang Xiaochuan's scalp went numb instantly, and the hairs on his back nearly stood on end. Damn, why did it have to be this thing? Although he was at the second stage of body tempering, with physical strength and reflexes far beyond ordinary people, he was still flesh and blood in the end. This wild boar had thick hide and tough flesh once it went mad. It could even snap a tree as thick as a bowl with one charge. If those tusks pierced into someone's body, they'd definitely leave a bloody hole. Damn it. He wasn't ready yet to deal with this kind of vicious brute from the mountains. But now the arrow was on the string and had to be loosed. Run. Jiang Xiaochuan reacted extremely fast, grabbing the girl's wrist in return and pulling her as he turned and bolted toward the denser part of the woods. Seeing its targets move, the wild boar let out a low howl, pawed at the ground with all four hooves, and came thundering after them. Even the ground was trembling slightly. Climb a tree quick, find a sturdy tree and get up it. As Jiang Xiaochuan ran, he shouted to the side while swiftly cocking the hammer of the old hunting gun in his hand. The girl was so frightened her legs went weak, but driven by sheer survival instinct, she still scrambled up a tree with both hands and feet. Seeing its targets trying to escape, the wild boar let out an angry screech. The beast lowered its head, thrust its tusks forward, and scraped the ground with its hind legs, about to charge. Jiang Xiaochuan took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. Running was the worst option. Human legs couldn't outrun a wild boar's, and with so many obstacles in the woods, it would be even easier to get caught. He could only fight. He quickly raised the old hunting gun. This old-fashioned musket was loaded with iron shot that would scatter in a spread when fired. It worked well enough against thin-skinned prey, but against a wild boar covered head to toe in armor like caked mud, its effectiveness was greatly reduced. And after one shot, it had to be reloaded, which was a huge hassle. But there was no other choice now. As the wild boar visibly began to accelerate into a charge, making the ground tremble slightly, Jiang Xiaochuan aimed at the relatively vulnerable side of its head and pulled the trigger. Bang! With a deafening blast, fire spat from the muzzle. The iron shot sprayed out in a fan shape. Most of it struck the boar's thick shoulder blades and mud-caked back, making dull thudding sounds, as if hitting leather. Sure enough, it was useless. The iron shot only embedded itself in the mud crust and thick hide, causing no fatal injury at all. Instead, it completely enraged the beast. Damn, this hide is really thick. Jiang Xiaochuan cursed, his heart sinking. This antiquated hunting gun and its iron shot were far too weak against such a large beast. Roar! The wild boar let out an even more frenzied howl. Its charge was even faster now. The fierce glint in its tiny crimson eyes was fully exposed as it barreled straight at Jiang Xiaochuan. Faster than before. Watch out. The girl had just found a crooked neck tree to climb. When she turned back and saw this perilous scene, letting out a startled cry. Jiang Xiaochuan's pupils contracted. He had no time to reload and hurled himself into a clumsy roll to the side. Rip! The boar rushed past where he had just been standing, reeking of blood and musk, and its tusk tore a gash in his pant leg. That was far too close. Taking advantage of the motion, Jiang Xiaochuan grabbed a fist-sized rock from the ground, channeling that thin wisp of spiritual energy in his body into his arm, and hurled it viciously at the boar. Smack! The stone struck the boar squarely on the forehead with a dull thud. The boar shook its head, growing even more furious as it turned and charged again. Jiang Xiaochuan cursed and spun around to run. He couldn't run in a straight line that would get him killed fast. He could only use the trees as obstacles, circling around and trying to outmaneuver the boar. The boar chased relentlessly behind him, its tusks nearly gouging his lower back several times, close enough for him to smell the rank wind it stirred up. Jiang Xiaochuan pushed the footwork of body tempering stage 2 to its limit, weaving nimbly through the trees. Every hair-raising dodge made the girl in the tree watch in terrified suspense, covering her mouth and not daring to make a sound. This can't go on. The stamina drain is too great. Sooner or later it'll catch up. As Jiang Xiaochuan ran, he bent to snatch up stones from the ground, waiting for chances to hurl them back with all his strength. He was incredibly strong, and the stones whistled through the air, striking the boar accurately on the head and nose. Bang bang. The damage wasn't great, but the humiliation was immense. The boar howled from the hits and grew even more enraged, chasing even harder. Use this. The girl in the tree also had a flash of inspiration in her panic, snapping off branches and picking wild fruit, then throwing them at the boar wildly, hoping to distract it. But it was completely useless. The boar had locked onto Jiang Xiaochuan, its tusks gleaming with a cold light, as it suddenly accelerated again. And it looked like it was about to gore Jiang Xiaochuan in the butt. Don't run that way. It's a dead end ahead. I just ran from there. There's a rock wall. You can't get past it. Just then, the girl in the tree shouted anxiously, her voice on the verge of tears. But when Jiang Xiaochuan heard that, his mind stirred. A dead end? A rock wall? Hearing this, not only did Jiang Xiaochuan not despair, his heart suddenly leaped instead. As he continued circling around the trees, he quietly activated his spiritual energy, extending his perception forward. Sure enough, dozens of meters ahead, at the end of the woods, the feedback from his spiritual energy felt hard and towering. Like a wall. It was a mountainside rock face. Heaven never seals off all exits. There's a way to deal with this beast. Come on, you brute. He shouted at the boar behind him, abruptly changing direction, and sprinting with all his might toward that rock wall. Are you crazy? The girl, seeing that he was charging toward a dead end instead of retreating, went pale with fright. The boar stayed right on his heels, rumbling like an out-of-control bulldozer, leaving devastation in its wake. The rock wall was getting closer and closer. 10 meters, 5 meters, 3 meters. That rock wall really was steep, almost vertical and 4 or 5 meters high, covered in moss and slippery beyond grip. As he was about to crash into the rock wall, an ending where both man and boar died seemed all but certain. The girl in the tree covered her mouth in fright, not daring to look anymore. At this critical moment, Jiang Xiaochuan's gaze sharpened, and he suddenly drove forcefully with his feet, his body shooting out like a cheetah. At the very instant he was about to crash into the rock wall, his right foot landed precisely on a slightly protruding stone, and he used the force to launch himself upward into the air. At the same time, the core strength in his waist and abdomen exploded, and his body completed a clean, crisp backflip in midair. That move required not only astonishing jumping ability and core strength, but also immense courage and incredibly precise judgment. The girl in the tree stared in stunned disbelief, almost forgetting to breathe. The wild boar had no way to stop in time, nor had it expected its prey to disappear like this. Carrying tremendous momentum, it lowered its head, and its two ferocious tusks slammed solidly into the hard rock wall. Thud! A heavy boom, dull as a war drum. Even the rock wall seemed to tremble slightly. The wild boar let out an agonized howl of extreme pain, and its charge came to an abrupt halt. The impact left it dazed and dizzy, stars in its eyes, and its massive body swayed a few times. The next second, the beast's front legs buckled, and with a thud it toppled onto its side, unable to get back up for the moment. It could only let out pained grunts, clearly having hit hard. What a perfect chance. Jiang Xiaochuan landed without the slightest pause in his movements. He quickly reloaded the shotgun with iron pellets and gunpowder, then rushed to the dizzy wild boar. He practically pressed the muzzle directly against the relatively soft area behind the boar's ear. Bang! Another loud blast. This time, the iron pellets sprayed out at point-blank range, greatly increasing their power, and instantly turned it into a bloody mess. The wild boar let out a shrill, dying scream, its limbs convulsing violently, yet it still hadn't breathed its last and struggled to get back up. Its ferocity was plain to see. Jiang Xiaochuan's gaze turned icy, without the slightest hesitation. He threw down the shotgun and, with a backhand motion, drew the hunting knife tucked behind his waist. A flash of steel. Using all his strength, he drove it precisely deep into the wild boar's neck. Then he twisted it viciously. Warm pig's blood gushed out. The boar's struggle instantly weakened, and after twitching a few final times, it went completely still. Silence returned to the mountain forest, leaving only Jiang Xiaochuan's slightly labored breathing and the thick smell of blood hanging in the air. He pulled out the hunting knife and wiped the blood off on the boar's coarse hide. Looking at the huge trophy at his feet, a tremendous sense of accomplishment welled up in his heart. Second-stage body training, plus the experience and quick wit from his previous life, really was extraordinary. Only then did the girl in the tree shakily slide down. Her face was still pale. Looking at Jiang Xiaochuan, then at the wild boar on the ground, her eyes were filled with lingering fear and incredulous shock. Are you okay? Her voice was still trembling a little. Only then did Jiang Xiaochuan get the chance to take a careful look at her. Seen up close, the girl was even more strikingly beautiful. Jiang Xiaochuan wiped away his sweat and looked at the girl who was still shaken. I'm fine, but what about you? Which village are you from? How did you end up alone in these deep mountains? The girl lowered her head, twisting the corner of her clothes with her fingers. My name is Suwani. I'm an educated youth sent down to Jianshui village. My family used to be in business, and our class background isn't good. This year, something happened to my father, so I was assigned here. Jiang Xiaochuan's hand paused for a moment. No wonder. Her bearing and looks really weren't something an ordinary family could have raised. In times like these, having a bad class background was the original sin. Especially for a capitalist's daughter like her. She could hardly hold her head up in the village, in the dirtiest, hardest work would surely fall to her. Suwani continued in a soft voice. The grain ration assigned by the production team isn't enough to eat, and my work points are few. I heard that some medicinal herbs in the mountains can be exchanged for a bit of money, so I wanted to come and look for them. Unexpectedly, not long after I came in, I ran into this wild boar. As she spoke, her eyes reddened a little, from lingering fear and grievance. Jiang Xiaochuan sighed inwardly. When the dust of the times falls on an individual, it becomes a mountain. A perfectly fine young woman, who should have been living well in the city, was instead banished to this poor mountain valley to suffer. His previous life had been stifling, and wasn't it the same for this young woman? He asked no more, picked up his hunting knife, and began skillfully butchering the wild boar. The boar was fat and sturdy after removing the head, hooves, and innards. There had to be at least 250 to 260 gene of clean meat. He chopped off a thick, meaty hind leg, then cut off more than a dozen gene of good meat, tied it up with the flexible vines nearby, and handed it to Suwani. Take it. Suwani froze, then quickly waved her hands. No, I can't. This is far too valuable. You were the one who killed the boar. I didn't do anything, and I almost got you into trouble. If I say take it, then take it. Jiang Xiaochuan brooked no argument and stuffed the meat straight into her hands. Meeting in the mountains is fate, and besides, if you hadn't let it over here, I wouldn't have run into this big fellow either. I'm from Jiangshui village too. My name is Jiang Xiaochuan. If you run into any difficulties in the village later, you can come find me. Suwani felt the weight in her hands and looked at the young man before her, covered in blood yet with clear, bright eyes. And a long-lost warmth welled up in her heart. Her class background was bad, and no one in the village was willing to pay her any attention, much less help her of their own accord. In times like these, over 20 gene of meat was an enormous favor. Her cheeks flushed slightly, and she lowered her head, her voice as soft as a mosquito's. Thank you, Comrade Jiang. Sunlight filtered through the gaps in the leaves onto her face, making that blush look especially lovely. Jiang Xiaochuan watched her, and his heart stirred slightly too. This young woman really was beautiful. As he continued butchering the pork, he began calculating in his heart. Suwani was down on her luck now, with a bad class background and a difficult situation in the village. But he knew clearly that in another year or two, policy would start to loosen, and a family like hers would very likely be rehabilitated. By then, she would be a golden phoenix flying back to its branch, while someone like him, scraping a living from the fields, would be worlds apart from her. In his last life, he had stayed a bachelor, toiling himself to death without ever even getting close to a woman. Now that he'd been given another chance at life, if he could use this opportunity to get a little closer to her, maybe he really could bring this delicate flower home. With that thought, he worked even more briskly. Before long, the remaining wild boar meat was also cut into several large pieces. Jiang Xiaochuan chopped some branches and made a simple wooden sled, piled the pork along with the pheasants and hares he had caught earlier on top, and secured everything with vines. Let's go, down the mountain. It's getting late. He pulled up the wooden sled and said to Suwani. Suwani nodded, hugged the piece of meat wrapped in large leaves, and silently followed behind him, one in front and one behind. The two of them dragged their heavy haul toward the foot of the mountain. By the time the two of them dragged the wild boar meat back to the village entrance, the sun was already slanting westward. The moment they entered the village, they were spotted by several villagers squatting under the big locust tree at the entrance, chatting. That huge boar's head and the sled piled full of meat instantly drew everyone's attention. Good heavens, is that a wild boar? Jiang family's second son killed it? He can do that? Good grief, how much meat is that? That's enough to eat all winter. Isn't that the capitalist young lady from the educated youth station? Why is she with him too? The buzz of discussion rose up, filled with undisguised shock and envy. In times like these, whose family wasn't short on oil and meat, a wild boar this big was enough for one family to eat for several months. Quite a few people stared so hard their eyes nearly popped out. Staring at the red and white pork, their Adam's apples bobbed up and down. Suwani felt a little uncomfortable under those stares, lowering her head slightly, her cheeks burning. She knew she was benefiting from Jiang Xiaochuan's success to be able to come back, carrying such a big chunk of meat. Jiang Xiaochuan, however, remained calm, facing all kinds of gazes as he pulled the wooden sled toward the brigade office. By the rules, with such a big haul, they had to hand over a portion to the collective first. In those days, if you hunted a big animal in the mountains, 30% had to be turned over to the production team as collective property. Only the rest could be dealt with privately. They hadn't gone far before they reached the fork in the middle of the village. A crowd suddenly surged forward and blocked their way. Leading them was a dark-faced middle-aged man. none other than Jiang Xiaochuan's father, Jiang Daong. Behind him followed Wang Xiuqin with resentment written all over her face, and Jiang Mingtao looking smug. Jiang Daong wore a dark expression, his eyes fixed on the gleaming white pork on the wooden sled. When his gaze swept over the large piece in Su Wani's arms, he was so angry that the flesh in his cheeks trembled. Behind him, Wang Xiuqin and Jiang Mingtao also craned their necks to look, the greed in their eyes practically overflowing. Such a huge wild boar. How much meat would that be? The village hadn't seen such a big catch in many years. Wang Xiuqin immediately started wailing at the top of her lungs. Good heavens, you little beast, you really went up the mountain? And you even brought down such a huge pig? You're really trying to turn the world upside down. Jiang Mingtao hid behind his parents, sticking his head out and speaking in a mocking tone. Second brother, you're really something. Throwing your weight around at home wasn't enough, and now you can even hunt? But this meat, it should be taken back home, right? Jiang Daong suddenly strode forward, his finger nearly jabbing Jiang Xiaochuan in the nose, spit flying everywhere. Well, Jiang Xiaochuan, you've really grown capable, huh? How dare you lay hands on your mother and elder brother at home, and even shout about splitting up the family. Let me tell you, as long as I'm still breathing, this family won't be divided. Right now, immediately, drag this meat back home for me. If even one piece is missing, I'll break your legs. He was panting heavily, his eyes fierce, speaking in a completely commanding tone, as if Jiang Xiaochuan were still that second son he could manipulate at will. Jiang Xiaochuan stopped, threw the rope he was using to pull the wooden sled onto the ground with a smack, then lifted his eyelids and looked at Jiang Daong coldly, the corner of his mouth curling into a mocking arc. Take it back home? Back to which home? Wasn't what I said this morning clear enough? Split up the family, sever ties. Wasn't what I said this morning clear enough? Split up the family, sever ties. This meat is something I, Jiang Xiaochuan, earned myself. What the hell does it have to do with your old Jiang family? His voice wasn't loud, but it was like shards of ice smashing into Jiang Daong's face. Jiang Daong choked on his words for a moment, and his fury flared even higher. Bullshit. I'm your father. Whatever you earn is mine, belongs to me, belongs to the Jiang family. If I hadn't raised you, would you be where you are today? Would you have been able to bring down this wild boar? I'm telling you, you'll go whether you want to or not. And this meat, you'd better hand it over to me obediently. Wang Xiuqin hurriedly chimed in, glaring viciously at Su Wani. Exactly. You hunted meat and won't bring it home. Who are you trying to give it cheap to? Some outsider? Was it this capitalist miss who put you up to it? Jiang Mingtao also spoke in a mocking tone. Second brother, it's not that I'm criticizing you. When there's something good, you don't think of the family. Instead, you mix with some shady people. What kind of behavior is that? Su Wani turned pale with fright, a little at a loss. More and more villagers gathered to watch, whispering to each other and pointing. What is the old Jiang family up to now? Judging by his parents' stance, are they trying to swallow all the meat? TSK, they usually never seem to care much about the second son, but when there's something to gain, suddenly they remember him. Listening to the discussion around him, Jiang Xiaochuan sneered inwardly. He stepped forward and directly moved to shield Su Wani behind him. He blocked that family's vicious stares. My meat, I'll give it to whoever I want. He stared at Jiang Daong, enunciating each word. What the hell does it have to do with you? You. Jiang Daong was trembling with rage. You little bastard, I'm your father. How dare you talk to me like that? I think you've slept yourself stupid and forgotten who runs this family. Father? Jiang Xiaochuan let out a derisive laugh, as if he'd heard the biggest joke in the world. Are you worthy of that? From childhood to now, have you ever had me, your son, in your eyes? Wasn't he every good thing to eat and every decent thing to wear save for your precious eldest son? And all the heavy, exhausting work, wasn't he every bit of it shoved onto me? When it came to back-breaking crap like repairing the reservoir, wasn't he the one you thought of? Jiang Mingtao is too precious to be tired, so I deserve to be a beast of burden that can't be worked to death? His words were like icy awls, stabbing hard into Jiang Daong's hypocritical face. Jiang Daong was left speechless by the retort, his face flushing the color of pig liver. Wang Xiuqin shrieked, How dare you talk to your father like that? No respect at all. We gave birth to you and raised you. What's wrong with making you do a little work? Gave birth to me and raised me? Jiang Xiaochuan's sharp gaze swept over her. You brought me into this world just to use me as a hired hand. Raised me just to suck me dry and then kick me aside? All those work points I earned before, who did you pocket them for? I worked myself to the bone while you ate and drank well at home. And now that I've split from the family and want to get myself something to eat, you still have the nerve to come asking for it? You want meat? Fine. Jiang Xiaochuan's voice suddenly rose, carrying a ruthless edge. First pay back what you owed me before, with interest. The work points I earned, the grain I ate. The clothes I wore settle every last account. Once it's all settled, I'll toss you a few gene of this meat. The moment those words came out, the surroundings fell silent. The villagers looked at one another. Those words really hit hard, but they also made sense. Everyone had seen how the old Jiang family treated their second son. The whole family treated him like a blood bag, draining him dry compared with how the other two sons were treated. It was simply heaven and earth apart. Jiang Daong had his dirty laundry aired in public by his own son, and his face cycled between green and red like a dye shop had opened on it. The looks from the people around him stabbed at him all over. He suddenly stomped his foot, spittle flying far. Bullshit. I'm your father. Since when does a son settle accounts with his parents? There's no such logic anywhere under heaven. Even if we did wrong you before, we're still family. Bones may break, but the tendons are still connected. The more he talked, the more righteous he felt. Neck craned stubbornly as he jabbed his finger over again. So your wings have hardened now, huh? You think you're something just because you hunted a little game? I'm telling you, this meat has to be hauled home today. I'm your old man, and if a father eats a bite of his son's meat, that is only right and proper. I'd like to see you try to stop me. As Jiang Daong spoke, he lunged forward and reached for the biggest slab of pork belly on the wooden raft. That posture was pure shameless strong-arm robbery. Wang Xiuqin and Jiang Mingtao's eyes lit up, and they quickly crowded forward too, wanting to snatch the meat beside it. The onlooking villagers broke into a buzzing murmur. Has old Jiang really lost his temper? Has he no shame at all? Sigh. In times like these, there's not really anything wrong with a father eating from his son. But this is way too unreasonable. Never saw him care this much about the second son before. The moment he sees meat, he acts closer than anyone. Jiang Xiaochuan's eyes turned cold. Just as Jiang Daong's hand was about to touch the meat, his body flashed, so fast it left only an afterimage where he had stood. He stepped forward in a single stride, his right hand snapping out like iron tongs to clamp Jiang Daong's wrist. His 5 fingers tightened like a vice and twisted sharply. Jiang Daong let out a scream like a pig being slaughtered. He felt as if the bones in his wrist were about to be crushed, and his whole arm instantly went numb and weak. Jiang Xiaochuan's voice was cold as ice, carrying a vicious edge. Whoever the hell tries to snatch my meat, I'll fight them to the death. Before he had even finished speaking, his left hand was already clenched into a fist, and he drove it hard at Jiang Daong's overbearing old face. Bang! A solid punch landed squarely on the bridge of his nose. Jiang Daong only felt his vision go black, his nose sting, and then warm liquid came pouring down. He staggered back several steps, fell hard onto the ground, covered his nose, and blood seeped through his fingers. Blood, he's bleeding. Wang Xiuqin shrieked. Dad! Jiang Mingtao was also scared silly, wanting to help him up, but not daring to step forward. Jiang Xiaochuan shook his wrist and swept his gaze over the bedraggled family of 3. This punch is payback for all those slaps before. If you dare touch my things again, next time it won't end this cheaply. His tone was calm, but it carried a chilling ruthlessness. Jiang Daong sat on the ground with blood streaming from his nose, shocked and furious, but even more than that, unable to believe it. Was this really his second son, the one who used to take beatings and scoldings without ever fighting back or talking back? He pointed at Jiang Xiaochuan, his hand trembling nonstop, wanting to curse him out, but the pain made him suck in cold breaths. Jiang Xiaochuan let out a sneer, his gaze sweeping over the 3 already scared out of their wits. Let me tell you, every last cent I, Jiang Xiaochuan, earn has nothing whatsoever to do with your Jiang family. If you dare lay your claws on me again, I'll beat you every single time I see you. He said it with absolute finality, carrying the resentment built up over 2 lifetimes, and the force of it left the surroundings utterly silent. Wang Xiuqin and Jiang Mingtao were both terrified, looking at Jiang Daong sitting on the ground groaning in pain, and neither of them dared step forward again. The scene froze for a moment. Just then, a sharp shout came from outside the crowd. What are you doing, and why are you all gathered here making a scene? Production team leader Hu Chunxing pushed through the crowd, frowning as he walked in. The moment he entered and saw the mess, his brows furrowed even deeper. You people from the Jiang family, are you trying to turn the place upside down, or what? Before Xiaochuan went into the mountains, he already told me that he had split from your family and would live on his own from now on. You're 2 separate households now, and yet you came here making a racket and even tried to grab his things by force. What kind of behavior is that? His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the authority of the production team leader. The noisy crowd immediately quieted down. The moment Wang Xiuqin heard this, She refused to accept it and started wailing, slapping her thigh. Team leader, you can't listen to his nonsense. This beast hit his own father, just look at him. Look what he's been beaten into. He's an ungrateful wretch, we raised him all these years. And now that his wings have hardened, he's trying to turn the world upside down. Jiang Mingtao also hurried forward and said with a pained expression, Team leader who? My second brother. This is really too much. Hu Chunxing swept a glance over them, then looked at the calm-faced Jiang Xiaochuan. All of you shut up. Hu Chunxing barked, then turned and asked Jiang Xiaochuan. Xiaochuan, you talk. Jiang Xiaochuan briefly explained what happened. From his family forcing him to go to the reservoir in the morning, to his wanting to split off from the family, to being stopped on the road and robbed of his meat after returning from hunting in the mountains. Team leader who? I borrowed the gun from you, and I know the rules. Jiang Xiaochuan pointed at the wooden raft and said loudly, 30% of this wild boar goes to the team, and I'll handle the rest myself. As for them, he cast a cold glance at the 3 members of the Jiang family. I've already cut ties with them and split from the family. We're not one family anymore. Bullshit. Jiang Daong clutched his nose and climbed up from the ground, shrieking. I didn't agree to it. Wang Xiuqin also joined in shouting, slapping her thigh as she yelled. Right. I didn't agree to the family split. I'm his biological mother. If I don't agree, then he can't split from the family. Since when does a son get to say he's splitting from the family and just do it? Is there no law and justice anymore? She started making a scene, spittle flying everywhere. Hearing this, Hu Chunxing's face darkened. He looked at Jiang Daong and his wife, his tone stern. Nonsense. The production team has rules. It supports splitting households for adult laborers to work independently, to reduce the collective burden and boost production enthusiasm. That's the policy. Dividing the family is the commune member's own business. As long as an able-bodied adult is willing, the production team will support it. Since when is it up to you to say whether they can split or not? He turned to Jiang Xiaochuan, his tone serious. Chuanzi, let me ask you, are you determined to split from the family and live on your own? Yes, split the family. I don't want parents like this who treat me like a blood bag, drain me dry, and then kick me aside. Jiang Xiaochuan nodded, firm and resolute. Furious, Jiang Daong climbed up from the ground, pointing at Jiang Xiaochuan as he started to curse again. You little beast. Shut up. Hu Chunxing barked, cutting him off. Hu Chunxing couldn't be bothered to waste words on them and waved his hand directly. Since you're splitting up, then we'll do it by the rules. Just so happens I'm here today, and the fellow villagers are all here too. They'll be witnesses for you while we divide the family property, so there won't be endless bickering afterward. Bring out your family's work points record book, grain ration book, and all the things in your home. We'll inventory everything on the spot. Jiang Daong and Wang Xiuqin were dumbfounded. They had only wanted to snatch the meat back, but they had never really intended to split the family. If they did, who would work like an ox and horse for them in the future? Who would take that reservoir quota? Captain Hu, this won't be necessary, right? Jiang Daong said with an awkward laugh. We're family, a little quarrel, and it'll pass. Who's family with you? Jiang Xiaochuan rolled his eyes and sneered. Hu Chunxing kept a stern face, his tone suddenly rising. Enough nonsense, hurry up. Otherwise I'll deal with you for obstructing production and disrupting collective order. Those were heavy words, and Jiang Daong and Wang Xiuqin both wilted. In those days, the captain's words still carried a lot of weight. Very soon, Jiang Mingtao unwillingly ran home and brought back the work points record book, the grain ration book, and the family's pitiful little savings. In front of everyone, Hu Chunxing began to take stock. Your family has accumulated a total of 2,100 work points this year. By the rules, when an adult laborer sets up a separate household, they can take the portion they earn themselves. He flipped through the book and looked up at Jiang Xiaochuan. Xiaochuan, your work points are recorded separately, 1,350. You take this portion with you. No objections, right? The moment Jiang Daong heard that, he became anxious at once. How can that work? What he ate and drank. Wasn't what he ate and drank earned by himself? Hu Chunxing glared at him. If you're not convinced, go argue your case at the commune. Work points are work points, and grain rations are grain rations. They're two different things. Grain rations are distributed by head count. Your family has 4 laborers. How much grain you got this year? Don't you know that yourself? Now that the family is splitting up, the money converted from the work points that belongs to Chuanzi must be given to him in full, not 1 cent less. Jiang Daong was speechless. The surrounding villagers murmured quietly. More than 1,300 work points. Chuanzi really is capable. Most of the Jiang family's work points were earned by him, more than the other 3 of them combined. Hu Chunxing gave a snort and continued reading. Your family has those 3 rooms. They're old, but still livable. At market value, they're worth 80 yuan. Since Chuanzi is splitting off to live on his own, you have to give him half the house value, 40 yuan. Hearing this, Wang Xiuqin nearly jumped up. 40 yuan? Captain, how is that broken-down house worth that much money? Besides, what does he need a house for all by himself? The three of us still need a place to live. Zhang Xiaochuan let out a cold laugh and spoke lightly. I don't want the house. Cash it out. 40 yuan, not 1 cent less. Wang Xiuqin rolled her eyes in fury, but had no way to refute it. Hu Chunsheng went on to calculate the grain rations. Your family's grain rations for this year, coarse grain and fine grain combined, come to about 300 jin left. Divided by headcount, Chuanzi gets 75 jin. Wang Xiuqin felt another sharp pang of distress. 75 jin of grain was enough for one person to eat for 2 or 3 months. As Hu Chunsheng read them out item by item, Wang Xiuqin and Zhang Dayong's expressions grew uglier with each item. When you add up the work points money, the house money, the grain rations, and the pots and pans, all in all, the old Zhang family had to give Zhang Xiaochuan nearly 200 yuan, plus 75 jin of grain. This was practically cutting flesh from them. Zhang Dayong covered his still bleeding nose, his eyes red. Wang Xiuqin was trembling with heartache, muttering nonstop. What a sin. This is going to force us to our deaths. Where would our family get that kind of money? That little beast says split the family, and we have to split it. Where are we supposed to find so much money? Ignoring them, Hu Chunsheng took out paper and pen and began writing the family separation document. Listen carefully, everyone. Work points cashed out at 148, house cashed out at 40, grain rations 75 jin, 1 set of pots and bowls. Black and white on paper, sign and put your thumbprint. And from now on you'll each live your own lives and stay out of each other's business. After finishing, he looked at Zhang Xiaochuan. Chuanzi, do you think this works? Zhang Xiaochuan naturally had no objections and nodded as he spoke. Fine, we'll do it the way the captain said. Hu Chunsheng then looked at Zhang Dayong and Wang Xiuqin and said with a glare, what about you? Any objections? Wang Xiuqin still wanted to throw a tantrum, but Zhang Dayong pulled her back. In those days, the production team leader's words still carried weight. If things really turned ugly, life in the village would be hard afterward. Gritting his teeth, Zhang Dayong squeezed out a sentence through clenched teeth. No. No objections. Hu Chunsheng nodded and was just about to have both sides sign when Wang Xiuqin's eyes suddenly shifted, and she pointed at the wild boar meat on the wooden rack and shrieked. Wait. Captain, even if we're splitting the family, this pork should count too, right? This wild boar was hunted today, so it counts as our family's property and should be divided. The more she spoke, the more justified she felt, even straightening her back. There are 3 people in our family now, and he's just one person. Divided by head count, most of this pork should be ours. As soon as Wang Xiuqin said this, Zhang Dayong and Zhang Mingtao's eyes lit up too. That's right, we almost forgot about that. Splitting the family and dividing money and grain, that's for later. But this wild boar is right here, ready-made, all that white meat laid out in front of us. Zhang Dayong covered his nose, his voice muffled, but there was a smugness to it. That's right, Captain, this pork has to be counted too. Today's the family split, so everything in the house has to be counted clearly. Not a single thing can be left out. He turned to look at Zhang Xiaochuan, his eyes full of calculation. Little beast, so what if you take the work points money and the house money? This wild boar is real, solid meat. Just this one pig is enough to make up for things for our whole family. Wang Xiuqin chimed in as well, standing ramrod straight. That mean, smug look returning to her face. Exactly. Divided by head count, we have 3 people and he's 1. So 3/4 of this pig should belong to us. Captain, judge this fairly for us, isn't that how it should be? The more she spoke, the more worked up she got, as if she could already see the white pork going into her own pot. Zhang Mingtao also chimed in from the side, his tone sour. Second brother, it's not that I'm criticizing you, but even if the family is split, you can't keep all the good food to yourself. Don't be too greedy. What's yours is yours, what isn't yours, you won't be able to take. Our parents raised you this big, asking you to give them a bit of meat isn't too much, is it? The surrounding villagers began whispering again. This old Zhang family really knows how to calculate. If it's divided like this, Chuanzi will suffer a big loss. Exactly. If most of a whole wild boar goes to them, then wouldn't the money and grain from the family split be basically free for them? Looking at the greedy faces of the whole family, Zhang Xiaochuan suddenly laughed. The laughter wasn't loud, but it was especially clear, carrying undisguised mockery. Wang Xiuqin was stunned by his laughter for a moment, then flew into a rage from embarrassment. What are you laughing at? What's so funny? Do you really think you came out ahead in this family split? I'm telling you, this wild boar has to be divided with us. Zhang Dayong also glared, and said, "Little beast, stop putting on an act over there." Jiang Xiaochuan stopped laughing and turned his gaze to Hu Chunxing. "Captain Hu, let me ask you something. After the family split, would the things I hunt myself and the work points I earn still count as belonging to the old Jiang family?" Hu Chunxing didn't hesitate and shook his head right away. "Of course not. Once the family splits, you're two separate households, each living your own life, earning your own work points, and building up your own family property. What you earn from now on is yours, and what they earn from now on is theirs. It has nothing to do with each other. That's the rule." Jiang Xiaochuan nodded, then looked at the three members of the old Jiang family again. "Then let me ask one more thing. This morning, didn't I already say in front of them that I wanted to split the family and sever ties? Didn't they themselves say there and then that they had no son like me, and tell me to get out of this house? Since we've already split up, what right do they have to demand a share of the wild boar I hunted after the split?" Wang Xiuqin and Zhang Daiyong's expressions changed. They wanted to argue back, but couldn't open their mouths. They really had said those things this morning. Some of the neighbors around had heard it, and now they all nodded. That's right, the fight this morning was fierce. The old Zhang family said with their own mouths that they had no such son. I heard it too. Wang Xiuqin even told Chuanzi to get out. Chuanzi himself said he wanted to split the family, and they were counting on making Chuanzi fill the quota, so they refused to let go. Seeing people around him nodding, Jiang Xiaochuan continued, "I borrowed the gun and went into the mountains after saying we were splitting the family this morning. This wild boar was also hunted after that." He stared at the three members of the old Jiang family and spoke word by word. "So this wild boar was earned by me, Jiang Xiaochuan, after the family split. What does it have to do with your old Jiang family?" That was clear and logical. The villagers watching all understood and nodded one after another. That's exactly how it is. What was earned before the split counts as the family's, what was earned after the split counts as one's own. The old Jiang family had miscalculated this one. Wang Xiuqin panicked and shouted, stamping her feet. "That's bullshit. The family division papers were only signed now, so it has to be counted from now. Why should it count from this morning? Do words spoken in the morning count? Then I could say I'm going to be emperor tomorrow. Would that count too?" Zhang Daiyong also shouted along. "Exactly. If there are no signatures and thumbprints, then it doesn't count as a family split. This wild boar should be divided as family property." Jiang Mingtao also said sarcastically, "Second brother, you're really full of schemes, aren't you? You want to take every good thing for yourself? The captain is right here. Until it's in black and white and signed, you're still a member of the old Jiang family. This wild boar has to be divided according to the rules." The three of them chimed in one after another, arguing so fiercely that spit flew everywhere. Hu Chunxing frowned as he looked at this family that was being utterly unreasonable. Just as he was about to speak, Jiang Xiaochuan spoke first. "Captain Hu, when I borrowed the gun from you this morning, didn't I tell you that I had split from the old Jiang family and would live on my own from now on?" Hu Chunxing thought for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, you said it very clearly." Jiang Xiaochuan asked again, "And at the time, didn't you agree as well?" Hu Chunxing nodded again. "I did. I even told you to be careful. Then that's settled." Jiang Xiaochuan looked at the three members of the old Jiang family, his tone calm. "The captain represents the production team. If the captain agreed, that means the production team recognized the family split. As for signatures and thumbprints, those are formalities, procedures. But the fact of the family split was already established the moment I said it this morning and you accepted it." He paused, then added, "These days, splitting a family isn't child's play. Once words are spoken, they're like water spilled on the ground. This morning, you personally told me to get out and said you had no son like me. Now that you see meat, you want to go back on your word? Do you expect your whole family to get every advantage under the sun?" What he said was both reasonable and fair, and the surrounding villagers all nodded. Chuanzi is right. Once the words are out, how can you take them back? Exactly. You cursed him so viciously this morning. And now that you see meat, your family again? That's some pretty thick skin. Hu Chunxing understood it too. He cleared his throat and spoke. "All right, enough. Stop arguing. I'll settle this fairly." He looked at the three members of the old Jiang family, his tone stern. "Chuanzi reported the family split to me this morning, and I approved it, which means it has the brigade's recognition. As for the wild boar, Chuanzi hunted it with his own ability after the family split, so it should belong to him alone. Your old Jiang family has no right to a share." These words were like a bucket of cold water, drenching Wang Xiuqin and the other two over the head. The moment Wang Xiuqin heard this, she completely exploded. She plopped down on the ground, slapped her thigh, and began to wail. "Oh, my heavens, there's no justice in this world. The captain is playing favorites, helping that heartless little beast bully us honest people. Life can't go on like this. I can't live anymore." As she wailed, she rolled around on the ground, getting dirt all over herself. Zhang Daong was so angry that his face and neck turned red as he pointed at Hu Chunxing. Captain Hu, you're being partial. Why does it count as a family split just because he says so? Why should the wild boar belong to him alone? My parents worked so hard to raise him, and now he's taken so many things when splitting off. So what's wrong with us asking for some wild boar meat? Aren't you just favoring him? I refuse to accept this. I want to go to the commune and report you. Hu Chunxing's face darkened, and he slammed the table. Report me? Go ahead. I'm handling this by the rules. Why would I be afraid of your complaint? Go ask the commune whether what someone gets himself after splitting off should belong to him. Seeing his parents making a scene, Zhang Mingtao also found the courage to speak up. Captain Hu, isn't what you're doing a bit inappropriate? No matter what, we're still one family, close blood relatives. Close blood relatives? Zhang Xiaochuan let out a sneer and cut him off. We're close kin when you're sucking my blood, but not when it's time to divide my meat. Your kind of close kin is really shameless. Zhang Mingtao was left speechless by the retort. Wang Xiuqin was still throwing a tantrum and rolling on the ground, her cries shaking the air. I'm not splitting the family anymore. I'm not. This beast hit his father and still wants to keep the wild boar all for himself? No way. I'm not splitting this family anymore. I'm still his mother, so he has to listen to me. As she shouted, she reached for the family-splitting document on the ground, trying to tear it up. Zhang Xiaochuan's eyes turned cold. He had long been on guard against this move. Almost at the same moment Wang Xiuqin reached out, his foot moved, and a clod of dirt flew up, striking the back of her hand with precision. Ouch! Wang Xiuqin drew back her hand in pain. Zhang Xiaochuan bent down, picked up the family-splitting document from the ground, carefully folded it, and tucked it into his clothes. The signature is there, the thumbprint is there, and the captain has stamped it too. You think just because you say the split is off, it's off? He looked at Hu Chunxing. Captain Hu, this document counts, right? Hu Chunxing nodded. Of course it counts. Black and white on paper, with the red seal on it, no one can go back on it. Seeing that tearing up the document had failed, Wang Xiuqin started a new round of wailing. My life is so bitter. I raised an ungrateful wretch. Everyone, come look. A son hits his father. The captain is playing favorites. There's no way to live. Anyway, I don't care. If the wild boar isn't divided today, I won't sign this family-splitting document. Her voice was loud, and she cried with dramatic rises and falls, like she was performing in an opera. The surrounding villagers shook their heads as they watched. This Wang Xiuqin really is unmatched when it comes to throwing tantrums. She used to control Chuanzi like this, didn't she? Unfortunately, Chuanzi doesn't fall for that anymore. Zhang Xiaochuan looked at Wang Xiuqin rolling on the ground, then suddenly turned and walked over to the wooden raft. Besides the wild boar meat, there were also the boar's innards he had casually cleaned out earlier, packed in a broken wooden bucket. Bloody water mixed with some filth, and the smell was overpowering. Zhang Xiaochuan picked up the wooden bucket and walked over to Wang Xiuqin. Wang Xiuqin was in the middle of crying her heart out, and when she suddenly saw Zhang Xiaochuan coming over, she froze for a moment. Why you? What are you trying to do? Zhang Xiaochuan said nothing and flicked his wrist. Splash! More than half a bucket of stinking pig innards mixed with bloody water was dumped all over Wang Xiuqin from head to toe. Ah! Wang Xiuqin let out a scream, and her whole body froze. Pig's blood smeared her entire face. Rotten intestines hung in her hair, and the smell was so vile it made people nauseous. She sat there on the ground in a daze, unable to react for a long while. The surroundings also fell silent in an instant. Everyone stared at the scene in shock. Zhang Xiaochuan tossed the empty bucket aside and clapped his hands. Don't you love throwing tantrums? Don't you love rolling around? Now that's got some flavor to it, so go on. His tone was light, as if he had just splashed out a basin of foot-washing water. Wang Xiuqin finally came to her senses. She looked at the filth all over her body and smelled that nauseating stench, then threw up with a wail. She vomited and cried at the same time. This time she was really crying, so disgusted that tears and snot streamed together. You damned bastard, you dared splash me. Zhang Daong and Zhang Mingtao were also dumbfounded. They wanted to step forward, but the filth disgusted them, so they stood there covering their noses, caught in a dilemma. Zhang Xiaochuan couldn't be bothered with her and looked at Zhang Daong and Zhang Mingtao. What about you two? Still want to howl? Seeing Wang Xiuqin in such a miserable state, Zhang Daong and Zhang Mingtao shuddered in fright and didn't dare make another sound. Zhang Xiaochuan gave a scornful laugh, his gaze sweeping over the people in front of him. The family separation agreement, are you signing it or not? Sign it right now. If not, fine. But if you dare come looking for trouble with me again, then every time I see you, I'll dump it on you. There's plenty of manure water anyway, enough for all of you. He said it lightly, but it sent a chill straight through Jiang Daong and the other two. This second son had truly changed. He had become ruthless and merciless, not giving any face at all. Hu Chunxing also seized the chance to speak, his tone stern. You people of the old Jiang family, don't mistake kindness for weakness. The family separation was proposed by Chuanzi and supported by the production team. Whether you agree or not, it has to happen. If you keep making trouble, I'll report it and say you're obstructing production. Then your work points will be deducted, and we'll see what you do. Those words were the final straw. In those days, work points were a lifeline. Having them deducted felt even worse than losing your life. Jiang Daong gritted his teeth, shot Jiang Xiaochuan a fierce glare, and squeezed out a sentence through clenched teeth. Sign, we'll sign. Wang Xiuqin still wanted to say something, but Jiang Daong grabbed her at once. Stop howling, haven't you embarrassed yourself enough? Wang Xiuqin looked at the manure water all over herself, then at the villagers around her pointing and whispering, and finally wilted. Hu Chunxing took out the family separation agreement and had both sides sign it and put their thumbprints on it. Jiang Daong pressed down his thumbprint with a trembling hand. Wang Xiuqin, supported by Jiang Mingtao, reluctantly did the same. Jiang Xiaochuan briskly signed his own name and added his thumbprint. The document was made in triplicate. Hu Chunxing kept one copy, and each side held one copy. All right, from now on, you are two separate families. Hu Chunxing put away the document and looked at Jiang Daong. The money and grain that should go to Chuanzi must be gathered within 3 days and delivered to the production team office for me to pass on. If you dare renege, don't blame me for showing no mercy. Jiang Daong lowered his head and gave a muffled acknowledgement. Wang Xiuqin was still sobbing softly, and the smell coming off her made people wrinkle their brows. Jiang Mingtao supported her, his face looking awful. The family of three, bedraggled and humiliated, prepared to turn and leave. Just then, Jiang Xiaochuan suddenly spoke. Wait a moment. Since the team leader is here, we might as well clear everything up once and for all. As soon as Jiang Xiaochuan said this, Jiang Daong's family, who had been about to slink away, immediately stopped in their tracks. What else is there? Jiang Daong asked irritably, speaking nasally while covering his nose. Jiang Xiaochuan looked at them, the corners of his mouth curling into a half smile. Now that the family has been split up, some things need to be made clear too. That slot for the village reservoir construction belongs to the old Jiang family. Now that I'm no longer one of the old Jiang family, naturally, I can't take this quota. Have you decided which one of you will go do the labor? These words were like a stone suddenly thrown into the water. Wang Xiuqin and Jiang Daong both froze. Then their expressions changed drastically. They had been so busy grabbing meat and making a fuss over splitting up the family that they had completely forgotten about this. For building the reservoir, the old Jiang family was required to send someone. Before, they had it all planned out to have Jiang Xiaochuan take on this miserable job while they stayed home and enjoyed an easy life. But now, Jiang Xiaochuan had split from the family in black and white in front of so many people. What about the quota? Jiang Mingtao was the first to panic. He grabbed Jiang Daong's arm, his voice changing pitch. Dad, Mom, it absolutely can't be me. Building that reservoir is exhausting enough to kill a person. I heard that someone from the neighboring village worked so hard last year, they vomited blood. With my health, wouldn't that be sending me to my death? The more he spoke, the more panicked he became, his eyes darting around wildly. Suddenly, he looked at Wang Xiuqin. Mom, how about you go? Anyway, you're a female laborer, and you usually don't earn many work points. And building the reservoir doesn't pay wages anyway, so it'd be a whole year of unpaid work. Dad and I can still earn work points at home, so it won't affect the family's livelihood. He spoke very quickly, as if afraid that if he spoke too slowly, this miserable job would fall on him. When Wang Xiuqin heard this, her eyes nearly popped out, and she almost fainted from anger. She flung Jiang Mingtao's hand away and pointed at his nose as she cursed. You little bastard, is that even something a human would say? You want an old woman like me to go build a reservoir? You want your own mother to go suffer in a place like that? I'm your mother, and you actually want me to go. Jiang Mingtao staggered from the shove and also got anxious. Then what else are we supposed to do? It can't be me, can it? You know perfectly well my health is weak. Bullshit. Wang Xiuqin shrieked. Weak health? You're more energetic than anyone whenever it's time to slack off. Daong, you go. You're a man, you're strong, and you can take it. She turned to Jiang Daong, her tone carrying a note of command. Jiang Daong's face turned green, and he roared with glaring eyes. Me go? I've toiled for most of my life already. Can these old bones still go build a reservoir? Besides, I'm the pillar of this family. If I go, who's going to earn the family's work points? With Mingtao's health, how many work points can he earn? If you ask me, Mingtao should be the one to go. Wang Xiuqin refused to let it go. No matter which one of you goes, it can't be me. If I go, who's going to cook for the family? Who's going to wash the clothes? You're a grown man, so what's wrong with suffering a little? Jiang Dayong's temper also flared up, and he craned his neck as he started arguing back. Me suffer? When I was suffering, you were still enjoying yourself at your parents' home. And now you want me to go build a reservoir? No way. I say let Mingtao go. Young people ought to toughen themselves up. The moment Jiang Mingtao heard this, he jumped up. Dad, how can you do this? I'm your own son. My health really can't handle it. If I go, I'll definitely get sick and collapse, and then we'd have to spend money on treatment, which would be a net loss. Your health is still strong, so you're just right for building the reservoir. Besides, you're the head of the family. If you don't go for something like contributing to the collective, then who should? The family of three pointed fingers at one another, arguing until their faces were red. Jiang Dayong cursed Jiang Mingtao for being unfilial. Wang Xiuqin cursed Jiang Dayong for having no sense of responsibility, and Jiang Mingtao cried and made a scene, saying his health was weak. The family that had just been united against an outsider had now completely torn off the facade in order to shirk responsibility. A dog-eat-dog fight, leaving fur flying everywhere. The surrounding villagers watched in stunned amazement, chattering among themselves. Well now, they've really fallen out this fast? Weren't they pretty united before? So they were only united when it came to bullying Chuanzi. Now this is interesting. Let's see which one of them ends up suffering through this. Zhang Xiaochuan watched this dog-eat-dog farce with cold eyes. He felt nothing but irony inside. In his previous life, this was exactly how they pushed him out to take the fall. Now it was their turn. He let out a scornful laugh and said, "Enough, stop arguing. Arguing won't help. The quota set by the village is assigned by household registration. Your old Zhang family is still a family of three, so one of you has to go. Whether it's dad, mom, or eldest brother, you can discuss it among yourselves. But let me remind you, work starts in a few days, so don't delay. In any case, it has to fall on your old Zhang family." After saying that, he couldn't be bothered to look at them anymore and turned to Hu Chunxing. "Captain Hu, thank you for your trouble today, and many thanks for upholding justice." He walked over to the wooden rack, chopped off a thick, meaty hind leg of pork, and cut another 5 gene of prime pork belly, tied it up with straw rope, and handed it to Hu Chunxing. "This is the 30% for the collective. Please check it. These 5 gene of meat are just a small token for me. Take it home and add a dish for your family." Hu Chunxing was taken aback and quickly waved his hands. "Chuanzi, this won't do. I'll accept the meat for the collective, but I can't take the extra. Rules are rules. I can't take advantage of the commune members." Jiang Xiaochuan smiled and said, "This isn't for the team. It's my personal thanks to you. If you hadn't upheld justice today, who knows how badly this matter would have turned out. These days, meat is a rare thing. Take it back for your family to have a taste." He spoke sincerely. Hu Chunxing hesitated for a moment, but in the end accepted it. 5 gene of meat was indeed a generous gift in those days. An ordinary family might not even get to eat that much meat during the new year. The surrounding villagers looked on enviously, but had nothing to say. After all, in what happened today, Hu Chunxing really had helped Jiang Xiaochuan a great deal. Hu Chunxing carried the meat, feeling quite pleased. This Chuanzi really knows how to handle things. After thinking for a moment, he said softly to Jiang Xiaochuan, "Chuanzi, what are you planning to do from now on? Now that you've split off to live on your own, you need some way to make a living. Are you going to work with the team to earn work points?" Or Jiang Xiaochuan had already made plans and replied directly, "Captain, there's actually something I wanted to ask you. In the future, I want to make a living by hunting instead of doing collective labor. Is that allowed?" Hu Chunxing thought for a moment and said, "According to policy, it is. If you really have the ability and can support yourself by hunting while also turning in game to the team, then you count as a special skilled worker. You can apply for a Hunter-S permit, and after that you won't have to report for work every day, but each year you'll have to hand over a certain amount of game to the team or convert it into cash. This is freer than being an ordinary commune member, but the requirements are also higher. You need real ability." Jiang Xiaochuan's eyes lit up. This was a good path. "I'm confident. From now on, I'll live off the mountain, make hunting my livelihood, and build my fortune. I won't be short by even a cent of what I'm supposed to turn into the team." Hu Chunxing nodded. "All right, give it a try first. What about a place to live? Do you have somewhere to stay?" Jiang Xiaochuan honestly shook his head. "Not yet. Captain, does the team have any empty houses for rent? I'll just make do for now." Hu Chunxing thought for a moment and said, "At the end of the village, there's a confiscated house that used to belong to a local rich man. It's livable and quite spacious, 2-3 rooms. It's just a bit run down, leaky and drafty, so you'll have to fix it up yourself. If you don't mind, pay the team 2 yuan a month as rent. If you don't mind, pay the team 2 yuan a month as rent. Zhang Xiaochuan agreed at once. All right, thank you, Captain. 2 yuan isn't expensive. As long as I have a place to stay. Once I make money, I'll build a new house. With the matter settled, Hu Chunsheng left carrying the meat. The crowd of onlookers also gradually dispersed, still talking about the old Jiang family's joke as they walked. Zhang Xiaochuan turned his head and looked at Su Wani, who had been standing quietly to one side the whole time. This girl hadn't said a word from beginning to end, just watched silently, her eyes carrying a bit of admiration and a bit of curiosity. Zhang Xiaochuan smiled at her, a little apologetically. Comrade Su, I gave you a scare today, didn't I? Su Wani shook her head and said softly. No, Comrade Jiang, you're really amazing. She truly thought he was impressive, daring to stand up to his family, daring to make a move in public, and still handling everything so beautifully. These days, not many people have that kind of courage and ability. Zhang Xiaochuan waved his hand. Impressive? I was forced into it. He cut off a good piece of meat weighing 4 or 5 jin from the wooden raft and handed it to Su Wani. Take this piece too. Put it together with the one from before, and it'll be enough to eat for quite a while. Su Wani hurriedly waved her hands. No need. No need. The piece from before was already a lot. Take it. Zhang Xiaochuan stuffed it into her hands without giving her a chance to refuse. It's not easy for a female educated youth to live in the village. With some meat, you can nourish your body a bit too. If you run into any difficulties in the future, come find me anytime. He said it naturally, but hearing it made Su Wani's heart warm. Her class background was bad, and in the village almost no one was willing to associate with her. Zhang Xiaochuan was the first person to treat her so kindly. She took the meat, lowered her head, and said softly, Thank you, Comrade Jiang. In the future, can I still come to you? Zhang Xiaochuan smiled. Of course you can. I'm living by the old landlord's house at the end of the village now. You know the place, right? Su Wani nodded. I know. Good. Then come by often in the future. After chatting for a few more moments, Su Wani hugged the meat and turned to head back to the educated youth dorm. Zhang Xiaochuan watched her back and thought to himself, this girl has a nice temperament, and she's pretty too. It was just that her class background was a bit poor. But that didn't matter. In another year or two, the policy should change. By then, if her family could be rehabilitated, she would be a golden phoenix. It wouldn't hurt to keep in closer contact now. He pulled his thoughts back, grabbed the wooden raft, and headed toward the end of the village. There were still more than 100 jin of pork on the raft, and together with the pheasants and hares, it was heavily laden. But Zhang Xiaochuan felt even more grounded inside. The family had split up, and he now had a place to stay. From here on, he would have to walk his own road. Time flew by in a flash, and the downhill path went by quickly. Zhang Xiaochuan dragged the wooden raft to the house at the end of the village. The house really had been confiscated. A brick and tile house with 3 rooms and a courtyard, more imposing than most of the village's mud houses. It was just that no one had lived there for a long time, so the yard was overgrown with weeds, the doors and windows were somewhat damaged, and quite a bit of plaster had fallen from the walls. But Zhang Xiaochuan was already very satisfied. In times like these, to have a separate place to stay, and such a good brick and tile house at that, already exceeded expectations. He pulled the wooden raft into the yard and shut the courtyard gate. There was an old well in the yard, and it still worked. He first drew some water and roughly cleaned the main room and one side room, making them barely fit to live in. The kitchen could be used too, though he would have to get his own pots, bowls, ladles, and basins. But none of that was a real problem. With a thought, he stored most of the wild boar meat, pheasants, and hares from the wooden raft into that mysterious space in his sea of consciousness. He only left a few jin of meat hanging in the kitchen for appearance's sake. In times like these, you couldn't flaunt your wealth. If it was left out in the open, who knew what rats or wild cats might set their eyes on it? By the time everything was tidied up, dusk had already fallen. Zhang Xiaochuan sat cross-legged, calmed his mind, and let his consciousness sink into his sea of consciousness as the cultivation method slowly began to circulate. Threads of spiritual energy gathered from all around and seeped into his limbs and bones. His muscles and bones let out a faint hum, as if they were being tempered over and over again. After fighting the wild boar today and then having that confrontation with the old Jiang family, his body was actually somewhat tired. But nourished by the spiritual energy, the fatigue slowly faded away, replaced by a warm force. After who knew how long, that current of heat inside his body grew stronger and stronger. It was as if some barrier was being struck, giving off a faint vibration. Jiang Xiaochuan's mind stirred, and he guided the spiritual energy to crash toward that barrier. Once, twice, 3 times. Buzz. With a soft sound, the barrier shattered. A surge of heat several times stronger than before burst forth, spreading through his entire body. Third stage of body tempering. He did it. Jiang Xiaochuan opened his eyes, a sharp gleam flashing and vanishing in an instant. He clenched his fists and felt that his strength had grown quite a bit again. With skills like this now, hunting in the mountains would be much more reliable. He stood up and stretched his muscles and bones, feeling comfortable all over. Just then, his mind stirred slightly, and the turtle shell in his sea of consciousness gave a gentle tremor. Of today's 3 divinations, only the last one remained. After thinking it over, he took out the turtle shell and clasped it in his palms. Spirits of heaven, spirits of earth, great immortal turtle shell, show your power. Let me ask what kind of state those 3 from the old Jiang family are in right now. After giving it a few shakes, the turtle shell fell to the ground. The omen revealed itself in his mind. Ominous. The calamity of illness has come true. They brought it on themselves. Looking at the omen, Jiang Xiaochuan curled his lips into a cold sneer. Sure enough, it had come true. That morning, when he saw the dark pall over the mother and son's foreheads, he knew they were going to have bad luck. Now the omen showed that the illness calamity had indeed come to pass, so it seemed it had already flared up. He put away the turtle shell, his heart utterly unruffled. You reap what you sow. The sins they committed were theirs to bear. Meanwhile, at the old Jiang family's house, Wang Xiuqin had bathed 7 or 8 times, but the stench of pig offal still hadn't fully washed away. Sitting on the Kong, the more she thought about it, the angrier and more aggrieved she felt. This can't just be let go. She slapped the edge of the Kong, spraying spittle all over Jiang Dayong's face across from her. That little beast humiliated us in front of the whole village, making the old Jiang family lose all face. And now, on top of that, the quota for repairing the reservoir has fallen on us. Jiang Dayong also had a dark expression, smoking his dry pipe in sullen silence. What else can we do? The family separation papers have already been signed. Black and white on paper, can we still go back on it? Go back on it. Wang Xiuqin's eyes widened, and her voice turned shrill. If we can't go back on it, then we'll make sure he doesn't have it easy. Look at that smug look on his face. He brought down such a huge wild boar, with the meat piled up like a little mountain. With that much meat, can he finish it all by himself? Jiang Mingtao chimed in from the side, his eyes darting around. Mom's right. That little beast must have all the meat piled up at home right now. Let's go steal some back. We won't take much, just 30 or 50 jin. Once the meat's in our bellies, what can he do to us? Is he going to cut open our stomachs? He said it as if it were perfectly justified, as though stealing his own son's things were only natural. Jiang Dayong paused mid-drag on his pipe and looked up. Steal? Yes, steal. Wang Xiuqin perked up, her eyes lighting up. Is he really going to watch it 24 hours a day? Once it's deep into the night, we'll sneak over and steal the meat back to eat. Let's see what he can do then. Once the meat's in our stomachs, is he really going to report it to the production team? Report his own parents for stealing meat? Let's see if he even has the nerve. The more she talked, the more she felt this was a good idea, and that mean, self-satisfied look appeared on her face again. Jiang Dayong hesitated for a moment. Stealing was bad enough, let alone stealing from his own son. If word got out, it wouldn't sound good. But when he thought of the gleaming white pork from the daytime, and then of the back-breaking job of repairing the reservoir, the last bit of hesitation in his heart vanished too. Fine, then it's settled. We'll go in the second half of the night. The family of 3 finished discussing it and waited for the dead of night to make their move. Wang Xiuqin even deliberately dug out a large burlap sack to carry the meat. Time passed bit by bit. By midnight, the village was silent, and even the dogs had stopped barking. Wang Xiuqin nudged Jiang Dayong. It's about time. Let's go. Jiang Dayong climbed up and got dressed. Jiang Mingtao hurriedly followed as well. The 3 of them slipped out the door on tiptoe and headed toward the end of the village. They had only gone a short distance from home, not yet reaching the village entrance. Wang Xiuqin suddenly cried out, clutching her stomach. What's wrong? Jiang Dayong turned around and asked. My stomach hurts. Wang Xiuqin frowned, her mouth twisted from the pain. It comes in waves, like it's being wrung tight. Before she had even finished speaking, Jiang Mingtao also cried out and squatted down, clutching his stomach. I hurt too. It feels like my intestines are being yanked and twisted. Both of their faces turned pale, and cold sweat broke out on their foreheads. Jiang Dayong looked at the mother and son and was stunned. What is going on? They were fine just a moment ago, so why do their stomachs suddenly hurt? Wang Xiuqin was in so much pain she couldn't straighten up. leaning against a tree by the roadside and gasping for breath. The words Jiang Xiaochuan had said during the day suddenly flashed through her mind. The area between your brows is dark. Evil clings to the center of your brow, the aura of illness and disaster. Liver qi stagnation. There may be something growing inside. Her heart skipped a beat, and a chill shot up from the soles of her feet. Could it be? Could it be that everything that little beast said was true? The more she thought about it, the more frightened she became, and her stomach hurt even worse. Daong, Daong. She grabbed Jiang Daong's arm, her voice trembling. It must be that little beast's doing. It has to be him. He was cursing us this morning, and now it's come true. That little bastard. He dares harm his own mother. Jiang Daong froze for a moment, then snapped. What nonsense are you talking about? How could he possibly have that kind of ability? I think you just ate something bad. Hurry and go to the clinic. But Wang Xiuqin was convinced it was Jiang Xiaochuan's doing, crying and cursing. If it wasn't him, then who else could it be? This morning he was already muttering all that weird stuff, saying something about the area between our brows being dark, and now our stomachs just happen to hurt? How could there be such a coincidence? That little bastard. He's south trying to drive us to our deaths. Jiang Mingtao was also in too much pain to bear it, and started crying and shouting too. Dad, it must be second brother. He resents us and used some trick? Ow, it hurts so bad. I'm dying. Jiang Daong looked at the miserable state of the two of them, both angry and anxious. The meat theft was out of the question now. He had no choice but to support one with each hand and help them back home. After they got back home, Wang Xiuqin and Jiang Mingtao lay on the kong, tossing and turning in pain, groaning nonstop. The more Wang Xiuqin thought about it, the angrier and more hateful she became. It was all that little beast's fault. He must have used some kind of evil magic. Otherwise, how could we suddenly have fallen ill? That little bastard has truly gone mad. Even his own mother and father he dares torment. She cursed as she cried, her face smeared with tears and snot. Jiang Mingtao also chimed in from the side, shouting, Dad, you have to stand up for us. Second brother has gone too far, actually using such vicious means against his own family.